people tend to think, I'm sure I've been guilty of this as well, that software engineering and coding are the same thing, and they're not. And I think we've all felt it sometimes. We've looked at something like, I can't believe that's a company. I could build that in a weekend.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining another episode of the Talent Pieces podcast today. I have the privilege to have my good friend Nandu with us. So, Nandu, thank you very much for being here. It's always a fun conversation with you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking with you.
Awesome. So, Nandu, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you started in the world of tech? How did you got here?
Depends on how far back you want to go. I started coding when I was 8 years old and never stopped. That's how I got started.
Wow.
Yeah, it didn't take much to get me hooked. But then over time, a hobby turned into a career, turned into a calling as I recognized some years ago that I owe my career to the strength of my network. And in some way, I feel karmically obligated to nurture and cultivate my network and do things that help other people do that as well.
Right.
And so when a friend of mine started what is now the Atlanta CTO Club, I enthusiastically did whatever I could to support it. And for the last few years, I've been running it.
Awesome. And talking about, it's a mixed conversation, right? From, hey, I'm a technical person, but also a community person. That gives space to what we know today as the ATL CTO Club. So can you tell us more about the club? What is it exactly? And, in your own words.
The short answer is the Atlanta CTO Club is an exclusive group of Atlanta's best technology and product leaders. But what that doesn't tell you is what it really means to have a group like this. And it means several things. Among other things, it's a support group for our members. Everyone in that room is in a role that sometimes can be lonely.
Very true.
People around you don't understand what you do. Your CEO maybe doesn't understand what you do. There's only so much you can share with your team, and having a space where there are people to commiserate with or to share little wins with is more valuable than people recognize. But on top of that, it's any kind of community gives you a lot of intangible benefits that grow over time. You have eyes and ears and brains in rooms that you're not in, and so over time you know more, you see more, you hear more than you could by yourself, and little things add up and shape the way you run your team and your job.
That's very true. And from the first part of what you were saying, which is the intimacy of the group, right? And celebrating those milestones that anyone but a CTO will understand. Like only a CTO can see this. Think about hey, I clear my technical debt. Does it really move the needle in the business? Probably not, but it's a huge thing. It's a huge milestone. We started to implement AI in XYZ parts of or XYZ components in our product. A little more noticeable, but it's more in the back end. Those are the things that are happening backstage, and I think that's where having a community where you can celebrate those things is very important. And then the other part to what you were saying is being in those rooms that you are probably not is it gives you context. It's context that you can share about what's happening elsewhere, not just, okay, this is my business, this is what I'm seeing from my seat, and that's about it.
Totally. And while you're talking, I remembered another part of this. We strive for an extremely high trust environment so that we can share openly with one another. And my North Star on this, we're not the only club like this. There are about a dozen clubs like this around the country.
Right.
And a story I heard from one of the other clubs was at one of their meetings. They had roughly 50 people in attendance. 2 CTOs said in front of the group, I'm not getting along with my CEO, and I'm worried I'm about to lose my job. Now, I know a lot of people, but I don't know 50 people I would say that to, let alone in a typical networking situation like that. So that was a really powerful image for me. And we do have conversations like that, maybe not quite as big, but to be able to say, here's the thing, how do I navigate this challenge? My CEO doesn't seem to understand me, and the things I'm saying aren't getting through, and I'm failing at my job.
Yeah, and those are the things that you cannot find in blogs, conferences, or just any regular call. Like it has to be a very intimate moment for the entire group, because it's not just you bringing up the topic, but also who is receiving, being able to say, "Hey, I have seen this," or "You're not alone in how you feel." And I think that's a very powerful component of what the CTO Club is today. Um, but if we put a zoom out, on the AI landscape, because it's so, and probably it's not just for 2026. It has been very noisy for the past couple of years now. But from a CTO seat, what does it actually look like on the ground versus how it sounds on the headlines?
For most CTOs, it probably is not that much different from anyone else seeing what's going on. Things are moving very fast. Things are changing. I mean, sometimes daily, but definitely every couple of months. There's a more powerful model, a new breakthrough of some sort. It seems, right, and things are changing. We can do things with AI tools today that we couldn't a year ago, and that were unimaginable a year before that. And so all of us, CTOs as well, are trying to keep up and figure that out. What is different for a CTO is, as the senior technologist in our organizations, we're expected to, number one, manage an existing portfolio. We have projects. We have programs that we're running. We have things that schedules to meet, and we're expected to keep doing that. And now we're also expected to be experts on all things AI, and answer questions like this. What, but ultimately, everyone is sort of looking at a different piece of this and coming up with their own opinions. And until the pace slows, I think it's just going to stay that way for a while.
Yeah, I think, and just pointing as might be like a political comment, but the media makes you think that everyone is so far ahead.
Yeah.
But then what I have seen as a tech partner to many CTOs is everyone has that feeling of we're falling behind. But it's so all the buzz that it's out there versus what's really happening on the ground. Because I think was it Claude that just launched that you can just give it a Mac Mini and it will set up and start doing everything. I mean, awesome, very awesome. But will you give it your repository today to start shipping things to production? There has, and again, this is my outsider opinion,
Sure.
right? There has to be a timeline between, okay, this looks very cool, and this is adding a real return of investment into my organization.
Yep. And let me take a different perspective on this. Right. Here's one thing that I think has undeniably happened, and this goes beyond AI to just technological progress over, let's just say, the course of the current century. Right.
Right.
So let's talk about running a service at scale. Right. Software as a service. Standard metric is MAUs, monthly active users.
Yes.
And let's talk about something that is bigger than most people will ever do, but not big in SaaS terms, and that is 1 million MAUs. Right? That's a serious service.
Right.
But it's not planet scale. It's not Facebook or Google scale or Uber.
Right.
It's so 1 million MAUs is definitely something that you want to be able to achieve, and isn't achievable for just anyone, right? Now, in the year 2000, ballpark, I would say if you wanted to build and operate a 1 million MAU service, you'd need a team of around 20 people, maybe 30. Because first of all, there was no AWS or Google Cloud platform. There was no cloud
set up a
provider.
server.
You needed physical hardware in a colo facility somewhere, and you needed people to manage those. With some hard drives fail, someone has to go to the data center and tend to the hardware, right? So there was you needed humans to do that. But you also need humans to do all of the maintenance, all of the non-hardware maintenance, OS patches and updates, software
Right.
updates, deployments, installations of various things, in addition to the application that you're building. The ops team, the DevOps team, the SRE team, whatever you want to call that. You needed a team for that. You also needed a dev team to actually write the software.
Yeah.
And so I would say roughly 20 people, give or take, in order to do that. Not to mention all of the capital to actually buy the servers. And it was expensive to do that compared to today, and took a lot of people. Now, over time, we got cloud services, we got a lot more remote management tools. We now have AI coding tools, and I would argue that not everyone, but the right person, I would argue I could build and run a 1 million MAU service by myself.
One-man show.
From my bedroom, right? But, and this is a massive but, I could do that, but I don't have something. If I had that idea, I'd be building it right now.
True.
Right? What we've done is shorten the execution timeline. I've got an idea. I can implement it faster. I can deploy it faster. I can manage it better and more cheaply. And it's now I can do it myself. But if I don't have something that 1 million people a month will pay me for, then none of that matters.
True.
Right? So that's sort of the invariant, and that's the thing that kind of gets lost in the noise around how good these tools are.
Yeah, because even I got on the vibe coding hype, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna build something. And I'm like, what am I gonna build? Like, what is something today that, because it requires, there's a time commitment into it too, right? Even if you're not really writing coding, but just prompts, it still requires time, right? There's a business logic behind it, but there also needs, and most importantly, to your point, there has to be a product market fit, because it can be the most advanced AI today, but it will not get you that validation of what will users really want to get today,
Right.
you know? And that brings to my next question, which is like, in all this context, like, what do you think it's more overhyped for CTOs right now when it comes to AI, and what is underhyped but it's really relevant?
It's hard to say what's underhyped because everything is so hyped right now. But let me start with what's overhyped. I think is still any kind of notion that we're going to replace human workers with AI right now.
I agree. Yeah.
We're going to make humans more capable right now, and at some point that adds up, right? If you say I can save 10% of my time by using AI tools, and I've got a 10-person team, well, maybe I only need 9 people.
Right.
I don't think we're there yet for the reasons that I just talked about. Yes, we can build faster. Yes, we can do more, but the what and the why is still the essential component to doing any of this. And to your point about you've done some vibe coding, I do some vibe coding, and what I'm doing is I'm not. Yeah, I do some stuff. I don't do a lot of coding professionally right now in my current role. I'm still a hobbyist, and so in my day job, I do use AI tools for producing documents and presentations and things like that, and they're really good for that. But as far as like building apps, what I'm doing right now is not doing more or faster application development. I'm doing things that I wouldn't have done before.
Right.
Here's a small example. I have a group of friends who this is silly, but we talked about our personalities, and someone was talking about someone being emo, right? Like emo music, right? And then I talked about someone being like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, right? And so in my head, I envisioned, there's 2 axes. You have Eeyore to Tigger on one axis, and emo to metal, like heavy metal,
Right.
on the other, right? And I plotted our friend group on this little chart. And I like that so much. I vibe coded a tool that will let you make a chart like that. I call it the 2-axis false dichotomizer. You can set up whichever 2 axes you want and plot people on it. Is this useful? No. Is it fun? Yes. I would not have built this a year ago, but it took me an hour of prompting to get there. So
you also built a whole trivia game.
I did.
That was very cool, and it also was like done very fast.
Yes.
I was laughing because the other day that I was vibe coding, I realized one of what like AI tools will give you by default is dark mode.
Yeah.
Even if you don't ask it,
Yep.
it's not in your priority list, but it's like, hey, here's dark mode. I'm like,
Yeah.
I thought that was curious.
Yeah, right. It gives you a little switch for dark mode, light mode without you asking.
Without you asking.
And so there's another thing that's happening right now that I think once some of the hype dies down, once we get more comfortable with all of this, we will start to focus on things like aesthetics. Right now, every vibe coded app looks the same.
Yeah.
They're using the same style sheets and the same frameworks, and from a user standpoint, it looks clean, it looks nice, but nothing stands out to me as, wow, that is so cool compared to, apps that I'm used to. For instance, like it or not, I think an app like Spotify has a personality.
It does.
Right?
It totally has.
And it's and I know what Spotify looks like, whereas everything I see that's vibe coded looks the same.
Yep. That's where UX UI designers are still relevant. That's where engineers are still very relevant, and that goes to my point on overhype. And again, thanks to the media, we keep saying like we're gonna be replaced by AI agents. And you said this earlier. Like, I think there's still a human component there, especially because for me, coding, just like designing, it's an art. Like, it's something that you're passionate about. It's something that you focus on a lot, and of course, it drives results and revenue in the real world.
Yep.
And for me, the thing that is underhyped is things like code architecture, documentation, all the boring stuff.
Yep.
But that today, more than ever, I think it's very relevant. Because even if you had a team, all humans, before, they had context because they knew your product, they knew your app, they knew exactly what were you trying to build, even if your requirements were not fully there, but they kind of got your feeling about what you were trying to build. Now that we are in this AI stage where everyone is adopting AI, then context, documentation, it's architecture, it's a lot more relevant.
People tend to think, I'm sure I've been guilty of this as well, that software engineering and coding are the same thing, and they're not. Software engineering is so much more than writing code. It's so much more even than writing code that works. It's answering questions about performance and scalability and security, governance,
Yes.
right? And also interdependencies, right? If I have a big enough application and I make a change over in one part of it, how do I make sure that it doesn't have unintended side effects somewhere else, right? Yes, of course, you can use AI tools to determine those kinds of things. But that's just one example. There's documentation, as you're talking about, right? And testing, and then matters of taste and aesthetics. All of these things are part of the bigger project of software engineering. And I think we've all felt it sometimes. We've looked at something like, I can't believe that's a company. I could build that in a weekend.
Yeah.
You could build it in a weekend, and then you have to do the rest of it, right? Then you have to make it, make it usable, make it reliable, make it trustworthy.
Validate the market as a competitor.
All of the above, right?
Yeah.
How as a user can I be sure that you're not doing nefarious things with the data I put in?
Yeah.
Right. Those kinds of there's all of this stuff that is separate from the code itself, that goes into it. But the actual production of the code takes less time than ever now.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that got me thinking on, okay, and we were talking about talent already, which is team composition, and on all the questions on, should I fire all the software engineers and just get my AI agents to do this, or just will the team be smaller? Do I have the right people? Is it something else? And what does good talent looks like on this new reality?
Um, well, if on an abstract enough level, good talent looks like what it has always looked at: intelligent, adaptable, and conscientious. Right.
Yes.
Um, but more specifically around AI, that means, well, the intelligent and adaptable parts mean I'm willing to explore new tools and learn how they work. The conscientious part is I want to make sure those tools work for us here in this moment and on this project or in this role, right? So you want people who are open-minded about it, but also can think critically about what they're doing with it. And so to some extent, that's always been the case.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with you, especially when I get it from like, hey, I need an AI engineer. Like, what is that supposed to mean
Yep.
in your business reality? Because are they using AI? Yes, 100%. But what are they going to build? How are they going to be building? And also, right, that comes with that curiosity, because your AI tools that you're using today might be obsolete in 6 months.
Right.
So that personality, that natural curiosity to keep developing yourself, I think it's a lot more relevant than,
Yep.
can you use Cloud Code today?
And this is ongoing. I'll give you an example from only about 10 years ago. I had a team that was even 10 years ago, even in 2015, was managing physical hardware in a data center. And then we undertook a cloud migration to move all of our service into a cloud platform. And there were engineers on the team who resisted and even left because they felt by moving our software to a cloud platform, they were now losing half of their stack because they couldn't touch the metal anymore. Which, I mean, there's still room. I mean, hardware doesn't go away because of the cloud.
Right.
And even as a cloud provider, of course, you need to hire people to work on the hardware. But
Right.
even as a non-cloud provider company, there might be reasons where you need to manage hardware. But at some point, you have to recognize that most people will be better off using a service hosted by AWS or somebody else instead of trying to do that ourselves. And it's that kind of resistance to change that I think is a red flag for not just about AI, but for anything.
Yeah, because it is very true for hardware, but it's still true for software. And how do you code? And how
Sure.
have you been coding for the past 10 years? And how you're going to do it for the next 2 to 3 years?
There was a time when coding meant using punched cards. And a big part of the coding job was taking code and translating it into punched cards and then punching the cards and then keeping a deck in order and managing the cards, right? No one today would think that that's how we want to write code, right?
Absolutely.
Even like it wasn't even that long ago. IDEs are relatively new compared to that, right?
Right.
Punch cards were 50, 60 years ago. IDEs are the last 15, 20 years maybe,
Right.
right? But if someone told me I want to do my coding in Notepad, just a text editor, you'd think they were crazy. You'd expect someone to use an IDE or at least some kind of modern coding
Yeah.
editor, right? AI tools are, if they're not already there, are going to be that way soon. It would be short-sighted and just downright ridiculous to say I'm not using that tool that can help me better at my job.
And I think this is very relevant for the tech talent that is listening to us, because it's not I need to change careers to something that will not be replaced by AI, because that's not it. But it's, how do I keep advancing and getting up to speed with every technology that is coming out, even if you're not going to use it in your full-time job today. But it's, how can I learn so I can be.
Yes.
And then even if you learn it, then you can bring ideas to your team and say, hey, I just checked out this very cool stuff that will help us. Then you become more valuable because it's not just following ideas, following what's brought by leadership, but also like, hey, what are the things that are moving very fast right now?
Right.
And in that aspect, given that shift, into this now AI coding, how do you think CTOs should be rethinking their talent strategy over the next 2 to 3 years?
I think it just goes back to what I already said, right? It's be more aware of those fundamental traits of intelligence, adaptability, and conscientiousness, and look for the right members of your team who will work with, make each other better, and stay open to continually evolving their craft.
Right. And I think this goes to you become a lot more intentional on how you design and grow your team.
Yep.
Because again, you're not going to need 30 engineers to do all the maintenance. You might need 5, you might need 10. And by that is, okay, different level of skill sets, different level of design around your organization, around your tech team, because it's like, okay, this is what I will complement with humans. This is the type of AI that we'll be using. This is the level of agents. The agents will go until this level of exposure into the real code before there has to be a human interaction. Like all those things need to be kind of recrafted to what we were seeing 5 years ago. Not even before COVID, but just when ChatGPT first came out, and we all started to ask like, what is this supposed to do and how cool it is. And talking about that, on the team composition, how do you feel nearshore talent still has a space there? And I mentioned this, of course, from what we do at Puzzle, but also from the perspective of sometimes there is the assumption that the AI engineers are only US based, but we have a world full of talent. So what is your angle there?
So I think when it comes to any kind of engagement with nearshore teams, the most important thing is aligning incentives, right? This is when we're talking about, and this is going to be a little bit more broad than just nearshore. We can say any kind of outsourced
right
staff augmentation or development work, or even in-house distributed teams, right? Because there's overlap between all of these things.
Right.
There, aligning incentives for the outcome that you want is the most important thing. And I'll use a metaphor to help explain this. Let's say you have to clean your house from time to time, right? You could pay someone else to do it, but they won't do it exactly the way you would do it unless you give them a good reason to, right? And sometimes that's just as easy as telling them, right? So for instance, you have a ceiling fan and dust accumulates on the top of the ceiling fan. When you clean, you always dust the top of your ceiling fan, right? This new person, that might not be something that they think of or
right.
And if they come, they clean your house, and then you find there's dust on the top of the ceiling fan, and you get mad at them and say, why didn't you clean the top of the ceiling fan? I didn't know I was supposed to, right? So you have to help people understand that. Now, the difference between, let's say, a nearshore outsourced team versus my full-time employee team, incentives are inherently from the start not the same.
Right.
So you have to give them that. And I think, in my experience, the reason for any kind of friction or failure in those kinds of working models is not being clear about what we are trying to achieve and making sure that everybody wants to achieve the same thing, as opposed to just fire and forget, tell someone what to do and hoping that they do it right.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I always mention like strategy first.
Yep.
It's not just saying, oh, we're going to get a guy on Upwork and figure out, hey man,
Yeah.
this is what we're trying to build. Can you make it? All right, good luck.
Yep.
but it's providing context, providing like being very intentional on this is specific functions, this is our specific target,
Yep.
these are our specific goals that we're trying to achieve, and then how can we work it together? Because I do feel that sometimes it's just like, yeah, that's the outsider that has no idea what we're doing, but it's helping us build.
Right.
And that sometimes is not, of course it happens with nearshore, and that's what I have seen. But to your point, it also happens with distributed teams. It's like, especially if companies were before very focused in office, and then they have to start spreading information across a remote team.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's where information falls into the cracks. So I think that's also very.
We just as humans, and this goes back a little bit to the real value of the CTO Club. Number one, just over however long humanity's been on the planet, we are adapted to interacting with other humans in 3 dimensions, right? And so if I need an answer to something, and you're the person who knows the thing that I need an answer to, and you're working from home or in a different country or just not in the same room as me, but there's someone else sitting next to me, I'm more likely to just ask the person next to me, hey, do you know about this thing, right? And maybe they have a useful answer, maybe they don't. Maybe I believe their answer, and you had a better answer, but because you weren't in the room, I didn't think to ask you.
Right.
Building those habits and those routines around including people who aren't in the room is part of that strategy.
Yeah. And while you were saying that, I was like, if you have a question for me, you'll probably Slack me.
Yeah.
Which is, but even that, the automated mindset of, okay, I'll just Slack Carlos, it's very intentional. It's very by design that we are all part of a virtual setup where we can have immediate access to everyone through instant messages. But that really makes the difference.
I had a manager once who he made a big deal about, we have a distributed team. We need to make sure that that we do the right things to support a distributed team. And so they say things like, every single meeting we should be able to attend fully from our desks, right? Because if we can attend it from our desk, that means someone can attend it from home or a remote office or whatever. Right. He said things like that, but then one day he was talking to me, and there was a big project that he said, hey, I'm going to give this other guy this project to lead instead of you. And I asked why. Like, I've been working on these things. That should be mine. I'm the most capable. And he said, well, the thing is, he's here in the office and you're not. And so I think what's going to happen a lot is when I have a question about this project, I'm just going to ask him, and then he's going to ask you. And that's just a long communication chain. And in my head, I thought, well, that means you're not really committed to the distributed team.
Yes.
Because you're acknowledging that instead of trying to find ways to fix it.
Yeah, and sometimes a lot of what I advise, to our potential customers on the puzzle side is specifically that is, hey, know that they are an extension of your team and that you should be talking to them the same way. Because if they don't have all the context, if they don't have all the information, that it's kind of setting them up for failure.
Yes.
And not making the best out of resources that you have out of your physical office. That's awesome. Now, my last question to you will be, if someone is listening right now and thinking about scaling their tech teams in this AI era, what's your one piece of advice?
I think I've already answered what my one piece of advice would be. Make sure that you are hiring the right person for your team who, number one, I don't think there's any way to ignore AI, right? Every single person you hire, it doesn't matter the role. They could be a receptionist, they could be a QA engineer, product manager, whatever, should be comfortable using AI and should want to use it more and should want to find ways to use AI to make them better at their jobs, right? But that is secondary. Primary, find the right person for your team. Find someone who vibes with your culture, who is going to make the people around them better in multiple ways, right? Either going to make them better at using specific tools or make them better at thinking through specific problems, and then finally someone who actually wants what you want, wants to achieve whatever your team's goals are.
Follows your vision.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. Nandu, thank you very much for making the time to be in here today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And stay tuned for another episode of the Talent Pieces podcast. Bye for now.